How's your lunch coma? Yeah, I hope you're all there. Yeah, I hope you're there with me. Yeah, my commitment is for you to take something home. Yeah, maybe something new. Hopefully something new. I think this will be new. Yeah, and we'll talk about something I call the future of leadership. Yeah, but that future of leadership can actually be available today. Yeah, would that be interesting? Yeah. By the way, how many of you, let's just take a quick survey, right? How many of you are team leaders? Team leaders? Yeah. About 10, 20, very good, very good. How many of you are managers? Managers? Yeah, managers, quite a number more, right? And how many of you see themselves as leaders? Leaders. All right, about another third. Okay, very good. How many of you see themselves as good leaders? Good leaders? Okay, quite a lot of confidence in the room. Very good, very good. How many of you are sometimes confused about leadership? Yeah, how many of you are sometimes confused about leadership, right? What it is, how it works, how do I know I'm doing a good job at leading? Yeah, how do I know that? No? Okay, we got a new slide. Okay, here's my name. Yeah, why do I show that name? Because it's a very easy to spell Filipino name. Yeah, isn't it? Right? Now, how in heaven do you pronounce that? How? You know, I hear so many versions, you know, from Bjorn, right, to Bjorn, like the mustard, right? Bjorn, no? But in a Spanish context or Filipino context, many times the J is pronounced like an H, right? Is this correct? Yeah, so many times I get this Bjorn, right? Or even worse, they call me Bjorn. And sometimes even, you know, if you have very innocent ears, you may want to close them. They call me Bjorny. Yeah, that's the worst one. Yeah, but Bjorn is my real name, and it's actually a Swedish name. It stands for an animal. Yeah, so believe it or not, this big person in front of you is an animal. Yeah, so does anybody know what kind of animal Bjorn is? What kind of animal? It's a Swedish name, Swedish name for an animal that also starts with a B. Anyone? B? Four-letter word. Bear. Very good. Let's give her a hand. Very good. Good job. Yeah, so that's my name. By the way, I always have to say how tall I am, because otherwise there's all kinds of bets going on in the back of the room, right? So I'm 6'8". Yeah, I'm 6'8". That's 203 centimeters. And 265 pounds. I used to be 365 pounds, like Michael Jordan, you know. But I don't look like Michael Jordan, right? You can tell? Yeah? Very good. So I'm a coach, yeah, and I work mostly with executives, top-level executives, like country heads, CEOs, regional heads, and even global heads who are responsible for an entire company, for the entire globe, not just for a region, not just for a country, no? Let's see if this works. So what you may hear right now may be new to you, yeah, and maybe even a bit radical. Yeah, is that okay? Yeah? I don't want you to believe anything I'm saying. That sounds kind of weird, no? Yeah, I don't want you to believe anything I'm saying. Why would I say that? Why would I say that? Yeah? The reason why I'm saying that is because I want you to take it home with you, test it out, see if it's true. right? Observe in your environment at work and at home. Yeah, observe it. Notice it. Yeah, see it in action. Because what you'll hear today is the words and the frameworks. But the proof in the pudding is when you take it home and observe it. Yeah, does this make sense? Yeah? Who does that make sense to? Nobody. Okay. Can I be authentic with you? Yeah? Is that okay? Can authenticity be a bit challenging in a Filipino context sometimes? Yeah? Is it a challenge to be authentic, to be real with people in the Philippines? Why is it difficult? Why is it difficult to be authentic in the Philippines? Does it sometimes happen that when you're authentic, people will attack you back? Yeah, they feel attacked, right? And that's why people shy away from being authentic. Would I be real? If I'm not authentic, would I be real? Hello? No, right? I would not be real. And if I'm not real, what am I? Fake, right? Would you show up, pay 5,000 pesos to see someone on stage who's fake? No, right? You would want someone to be authentic, to be real. Because that's when a real conversation can take place. If we're not being real, conversations don't take place, right? So I appreciate your permission, yeah, to be authentic. Is there anybody who's not okay with authenticity? Just want to double check. Okay, last chance. No? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Huh? All right, purpose, right? So I have a life purpose, and then there's a purpose of this conversation today. My life purpose is to develop world leaders. You know, that's a very lofty purpose. It's a lifelong purpose. It's not something that's going to happen. And when I first came up with this purpose 20 years ago, this wasn't going to happen in the next 2 weeks, right? This was not even going to happen in the next year. This is something that happens maybe over many years, maybe decades, maybe lifetimes even, you know, developing world leaders. And the reason why I came up with that purpose was because I was not satisfied. I was not happy 20 years ago with the kind of leaders we have. Not just in any specific geography, but in general. Right? I was not happy with these leaders. Yeah? They call themselves leaders, and I was questioning myself, are these really leaders? Or what? If not, what are they? Right? And my purpose for today is for you to take something home with you that you can apply, yeah? That you can notice, that you can observe. And if you actually apply it, it can change your life. It can change your career, and it can change the trajectory of your career. What does trajectory mean? It means the angle, like in which it grows. Yeah? Would that be interesting? Yeah? Very good. So that's the purpose, no? All right. Quick warning, if you're only looking for single-digit growth, this talk may not be for you, no? I wrote a book on that. So 3 questions already asked about leadership. And there's only 2 real reasons why your business grows. The first reason is the market gets better. All right? And the second reason is you get better. And everything else you could mention falls into one of these 2 categories. Yeah, would you agree? Yeah. So that alone was very insightful for me, to realize that the market will do what the market will do, right? It'll go up, it'll go down. But the only way to really get control over that somewhat is how I relate to that market, right? Meaning I could relate to it as if the market hadn't changed. Or I could say, I'm going to grow to match the new challenges, right? Yeah, I can get better to match those new challenges. And that's what we're facing more and more. 20 years ago, 100 years ago, major interruption came about maybe every 7 to 10 years. But since 2009, the global financial crisis, it seems like major global challenges happen almost every month, right? Isn't that true? Yeah, we're getting used to it now. Finally, we're getting used to it. So how do we deal with these things? No? So I came up with a new definition of leadership, right? And again, don't believe it. Test it out, try it out, see if it fits, like a new piece of clothing. Yeah. And the definition I have is that leadership is the ability to grow and channel energy in the direction of a purpose and vision while guided by ways of being. So that's a mouthful, right? So it's the ability to grow and channel energy towards a target, towards an outcome. Not just channel energy, but also increase it. How do we increase the energy going towards that target? As a leader, in HR specifically, should be very good at that. Very good at increasing energy. But usually we don't look at it that way. Okay. Now, how did it all start? It started with, it almost came by accident. And believe it or not, as a young person, I used to be extremely shy. Can you believe that? Probably not, right? Looking at me now. It's very difficult to believe. But I've been on this journey myself, from turning myself from an extreme introvert into now almost an extreme extrovert. If you ask a psychologist, would they say that's possible? Would a psychologist say that's possible? Probably not, right? When you're familiar with the MBTI or the DISC profile, they will tell you that's who you are for the rest of your life. Not possible. Because that's just who you are. Don't buy into it. It's not true. Right? It's possible. I've proven it myself. And I had to prove it on myself so I can actually help others do the same if they want to. And so the conversation was, how do I gain more confidence, right? Because that was the first target. And then I realized the world didn't really know very well what that meant. So I started reading books about confidence and power. But when I read these books on power, I was not too happy about what I read there, because what I read there was about trickery and manipulation, and how to cheat people. I wasn't happy. I said there must be something else, because with trickery and manipulation, what happens? Are you going to like it? No, right? You don't like it. What happens to your energy when somebody cheats you, tricks you, manipulates you? What happens to your energy? It goes up or down? Down, right? So I realized what they're talking about was force, not power. When we cheat someone, trick someone, manipulate someone, that's force. But the world thought force and power are the same. May the force be with you, right? But force lowers energy. Do you really want the force be with you? If force lowers energy. Now I said, okay, so if force lowers energy, what is power? Power must be the opposite. Increasing energy. Real power is increasing energy. So I wrote a book about developing exponential power, 28 ways of increasing your energy. And it turns out, when we plug an electrical equipment into the outlet, we actually know what comes out of there is power, right? We also know it as energy. But in human beings, we fail to somehow connect these two. But power, even with human beings, is energy. Energy is power. Yeah? And then, anytime you ask a new question and you get a new answer, that new answer challenges now other areas of knowledge. So I said, okay, so now I know the difference between force and power. What does that mean now about leadership, and what does it mean about management? And I've done this survey many times in many audiences. Management, what side does it fall on? Does it fall on the side of force, or does management fall on the side of power? What do you think? Who thinks it falls on the side of power? Who thinks it falls on the side of force? Raise your hands. Raise your hand. Yeah, majority says force. Right? Management falls on the side of force, and I agree. And then leadership falls on the side of what? Power. That's right. Falls on the side of power. That means leadership has to increase energy. Right? If done right, it has to increase energy. No? So there's a difference between power and force. Force lowers energy, and power increases it. No? So how does it now look like in real life? Now, how does this play out? As in HR, ideally we grow people, right? Normally we just grow them by growing their skills. Yeah, by growing what they know how to do. But do we in HR grow people for who they're being inside? We don't usually do that. That's like a accidental byproduct. Yeah, how people grow inside. Yeah, so I grew myself from disempowered to empowered. Yeah, that was a journey. It was a long journey over 20 years. But in that journey, I discovered there were some stages along the way. When we're disempowered, we feel weak. But at some point, we get tired of being weak, right? And then I said, I'm done with this. I'm going to get out of here. Yeah, I'm going to force myself out of weakness and move myself forward. Yeah? And that seems to work for a while. But what's the problem with that? When I force myself, I also feel like that should work for others. Because if I force myself and I can move myself forward, then if I force others forward, that should also work. But what happens with force? We talked about it a minute ago. It brings down their energy, and they're not going to like it. Right? So that's the drawback of force. So as you see, there are different elements on this slide here. No? You have disempowered, there's force, and there's empowered. So I learned that in order to get to empowered, to real power, I had to go through this phase called force. Yeah, also known by other names. Right? You see there's some arrows on each bubble, right? In disempowered, you see the arrows going to the bubble, right? That means people who are in this stage, they're drawing energy, they're sucking energy. Yeah, they need energy. Yeah, they don't have enough of it themselves. Yeah, they need it in order to grow. Then there's the fourth stage, and here you have a mixed types of arrows. You see some going out and some going in. That means sometimes they will draw energy, and sometimes they will give energy. Yeah, and the truly empowered person, yeah, they give out. They have so much energy that they can share it with others. Yeah, who do you think makes the best leader here out of those three? Yeah, the empowered one, right? Because they can give energy to those who need it. Yeah, they can give that, and because what disempowers us many times is fear. Yeah, and in order to overcome that fear, we have to be courageous. Yeah, at first, we have to force ourselves through courage. which is why I call it the hero's journey. Yeah, to get out of the disempowered state. Is this helpful, guys? Yeah? It's a hero's journey. Every single person on this planet is on this journey. Doesn't matter who. Even the President of the United States. Donald Trump, where do you think he is? And what stage? Who thinks he's in disempowered? Who thinks he's in the fourth stage? Yeah? Who thinks he's in the empowered stage? Nobody, right? So most everybody thinks he's in the fourth stage, and you would be correct, right? He has already evolved to the fourth stage. Now, many times when we deal with people in the fourth stage, we don't really like them, right? Sometimes, especially when they're drawing our energy, when they're being forceful with us. And so many times they can come and show up as negative. And so what does society do? What do people do in organization when people show up as negative? Let's see, they're shouting in meetings, they're abusive, they're abrupt. What do? Do you know this game in the arcade? There's these little heads that pop up, and then you have to hammer them down, right? That's what society does with them, right? And guess what happens to these people then? They go back to disempowered. Yeah? They go back to disempowered. Are we growing them that way? No, right? The best way to grow these people is to look at them a different way. For example, if you saw a 3-year-old having a tantrum, would you be upset with them? Would you hammer them down? You would go like, oh, how cute! Right? It's like, how cute is that? Right? Ha 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 ha! Right? That's a much healthier way of looking at it. You know? Because we don't have authenticity at work, it's also not safe to be angry. You know, I'm not saying angry is good, no. But if we have a more natural way of relating to anger, seeing it as a growth stage, right? A stepping stone towards power, it's much easier to deal with it. Yeah, it's much easier to be accepting of it. Yeah. And by the way, there's there's another half stage in between force and empowered, yeah, and that is called boredom. At some point, these forceful people, right, in their alpha stage, I also call them alpha holes because they suck energy, right? Alpha holes, you know. If I'd be authentic, I'd call them assholes, right? But alpha hole is much more acceptable, right? Much more acceptable. So at some point, they're actually getting tired of being forceful. And that's a healthy sign because they get bored of it. Right? So they enter a stage of boredom. You know, they say, okay, whatever. Yeah? And that's a healthy boredom. Yeah, not a boredom of disinterest, but okay, been there, done that. Next. What's next? Right? They're ready to now grow into real empowerment. Yeah, where they have the ability to generate enough energy in themselves in order to share it with the others around them, you know, with the entire organization. And that's also why it's so difficult to be a leader, because your energy will determine the future of your organization. You know? So by the way, when power goes up, these things also go up. When power goes up, energy goes up, courage goes up, communication increases, right? If you see a person who doesn't communicate, now you know they're in the dumps, right? They're low power level. Yeah, directness goes up, being able to confront goes up. Yeah, empathy goes up. Empathy turns out to be a huge skill. Albert Einstein was hugely empathetic, right? He knew how to place himself in other people and feel what they felt. He was able to place themselves into atoms and molecules and understand them that way. That's how he came up with his theories, yeah? Community increases, improves. We feel more of a togetherness, yeah? And fear goes down, authenticity goes up. And when we go back to this slide, there's also something called selfishness. Disempowered is very focused on themselves. Force somewhere in between, a little bit focused on others, a little bit focused on themselves, right? A mix. And it graduates, yeah? And then empowered people are very focused on others. They care about others, they care about community. Yeah? Themselves is one of the less important things. You can probably see examples in the history, most memorable leaders in human history. Who are they? They're probably Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Buddha, Jesus Christ, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King. These people cared about others. These people cared about society. Well, but along the way of this growth, we encounter obstacles, blocks, thieves and enemies. Yeah? Here they are. The first one is fear. Yeah? Like I said earlier, everybody's dealing with fear. Even at the CEO level, many are still dealing with fear. Much less, though. Much less. You know? Many of them not anymore. Level is force. It becomes an enemy because it drags others down. We cannot be leaders. No. And then the next one is certainty. Now, many CEOs are afflicted with that enemy. Now, when you're in fear, force seems like a friend. Yeah. When you're uncertain, certainty seems like a friend. But each one of these enemies, each one of these foes, each one of these barriers will stop you from growing. They will stop you cold, right? If you haven't heard anything new yet this afternoon, at least you're stuck in certainty. That means you think you already know it all. That nobody can tell you anything new. You cannot learn anything anymore. You have arrived. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a huge warning signal. When you think you can no longer learn anything. Yeah, that's a huge learning obstacle. Each one of these is a learning obstacle. Yeah. And in HR, you have to understand what these barriers are. In HR, you have to understand what these blocks are. Because then you can tell, what kind of help does this person need? Yeah, how can I best help this person? Does this make sense? Is this helpful? Yeah? Great. So, because management drags people down, right? It lowers energy. In a day and age where we have to achieve more and more and more with fewer and fewer and fewer resources. Is that true? Today we need to achieve more and more and more with less and less resources, right? In a day and age like that, when we always have to achieve more, can we afford to lower the energy of our people? No, right? We cannot afford to lower the energy of our people. So the question that follows after that then, if we cannot afford to lower the energy of our people and management is lowering energy, can we afford management? We cannot, right? The lady back there is shaking her head. We cannot afford management. So my invitation, and this is radical, I promise you that. My invitation to you, stop developing managers. Let's get rid of managers. Yeah? Let's get rid of it. Don't even think about it. Yeah? Because energy is such an important factor, we should not manage people. The only thing we should manage are things and structures and resources. Yeah? Now, I know HR is called human resources, right? And resources are things. Now, are human resources really? Are humans resources? Are human things? If we only manage things, then we should not manage people, right? So human and resources is kind of a contradiction. So my invitation to you as an industry is come up with a new, more empowering term for what we do. Yeah? Something that really speaks to growing people. Yeah? Energizing people, energizing organizations, energizing leaders. And being the leader you need to be to sit at that table at the very top. Because if you can do that, you will be the most important person in that organization, even more important than the CEO. And that may be hard to hear if you're a CEO. Yeah? And as a HR, that's something that may be heretofore not possible. Right? Very few HR people make it to the CEO level. But if you know this, anything becomes possible. So when we don't have management anymore, then we need something else because we have to fill the vacuum. Does it make sense, right? But the world's confused because at the bottom we have team leaders. And then we have managers, and then we have leaders again. So who is really better, leaders or managers? Right? So the confusion already starts with the leadership structure. Yeah, we have leaders at the bottom, leaders at the top. How does that make sense? So we have to replace management with something else, and the invitation is to replace it with leadership. Yeah, I think everybody can be a leader at any level of the organization. Yeah, at any level of the organization, any person can be a leader in their own area of responsibility. Yeah? And when you see it that way, things change. In the West, right? In Asia much sooner, but in the West, on average, leaders don't get leadership education until they're 45 on average. That is old. Yeah? But if you think of everybody as a leader, and the first person we need to lead is who? Ourselves, right? If we cannot lead ourselves, how can we lead others? So when the first level of leadership is ourselves, right? After leading nobody, right? Is leading ourselves, then we can start with leadership development on day one. We don't have to wait till they're 45 or reach a certain level. Because if they cannot lead themselves, they cannot lead others, right? After leading selves, it's more challenging to lead followers than leading peers, which is already a very rare leadership trait, being able to lead peers, equals. You know? It's even more difficult when you have to lead leaders. As in HR, especially as an HR leader, you need to be able to lead your board. Right? You need to lead your executive team, and that's a challenge, right? Because they're either peers or higher than you. And then, of course, leading world leaders, but that's extremely rare. No? Good. Do we still have time? We're up on time, right? So my invitation to you, okay, no, it's not working. Okay. Come on. All right. So when you go back to work, when you go back to your life, I'd like you to pay attention and really see energy in action. Yeah? Notice the energy between people. Notice, are they either empowering themselves or disempowering themselves, or disempowering others or empowering others? How do they leave them? Or are they doing both, right? Then you can recognize what phase of development they're actually in. Yeah? See it in action. Are they able to lead themselves? Are they able to lead peers, followers? Are they able to lead leaders? Yeah? There's a gentleman in this room, his name is Keith Jones. Yeah? Keith Jones is an American who's lived here. He's married to a Filipina, lived here many years. Yeah, Keith Jones, where are you? There he is. Keith Jones is a very rare example of a leader being able to lead leaders higher than himself. Yeah, a very rare example. He's the one actually practicing this. Yeah, he's influencing his CEO, who may be several, 2, 3, or more levels above him. Yeah, I've seen him do this many times. Yeah, internally, he's internal and does that. Yeah, that's a real leader. That's a leader who can lead leaders. Yeah. There's real life examples like that in the Philippines. Yeah? And not just with expats, also with locals. So that's what I want to leave you with. Don't believe me, take it out and see if it's true. Right? There's nothing to believe, there's not a religion. Something to notice, something to observe. And if you learn to practice it, it's very powerful. Thank you very much.